Me, 53M, and my wife, 48F, and our kids, 21M and 19F, are in trouble. My wife and I have been married in Australia for 30 years. She, 48, and me, 53. We've got 2 kids, a son, 21, and daughter, 19. It's all gone horribly wrong suddenly. Catastrophically. Unfixably. Help required. My wife is under all sorts of stress. She's awaiting the outcome of a work cover case. She's been unable to work for 4 years. She suffers from a form of arthritis also that leaves her often in pain. She's on a weighty combination of drugs for all of that. She's also an alcoholic. She hides her drinking, etc. My daughter is anorexic and bipolar and on medication for all that. Financially we are struggling, but had planned to sell our house and get something a bit smaller and cheaper. Both kids are talking about moving out to begin their adult lives, so the timing was working out. She has been suicidal and been hospitalized many times in the past few years. So we keep the medication locked up. I'll prepare her tray of medication each week, as it's a bit involved. My son and I are mercifully normal, since she is prone to drinking too much. Think, bottles, of wine. And becoming abusive to me afterwards. We have an agreement, goal of not drinking during the week. We're otherwise pretty happy with our lot. Despite being abusive the night before, she always is apologetic the morning after. She is well aware she has a problem. The day of the incident we had been looking online at property together to get some sort of agreement on what type of property we'd like to retire to, where that might be, what we'd get for our money, etc. That afternoon, she invited me out to have a spa. Naked. As you do. But when I got there she had a very full glass of wine. Being the middle of the week I pulled her up about it and she just burst into tears, and I knew it was going to be one of those nights. I told her I didn't want to be involved in all that today. It had been a long, long day. And I went back inside to keep working until dinner. Dinner was ready, and again when I went out I noticed an empty bottle of wine in the recycle bin and a half-empty bottle on the counter. She naturally had another very full glass. So I served up dinner for myself and left her and the kids to watch TV together. Around midnight, I heard everybody start going to bed, and I went out to the kitchen with a view to getting all the wine and putting it out of sight and mind in a cupboard in my office. This has happened many times before. Not without incident. But it does seem to help her stick to the no midweek drink goal. Anyway, she saw me carting off her wine and went ballistic at me. Threatened to damage some expensive property of mine. And dashed off to do so. I went after her and was able to interrupt her before she could cause too much damage. I was in the process of getting her out of my office amid much yelling and screaming when my son burst in and got himself involved. Since she was doing all the yelling, he assumed I must have hurt her. But that wasn't the case. So, we got involved in a yelling match as well. Then my wife clocked me over the head with a lamp. How cliché. And I made my escape from the room. About this time my daughter, who had been upstairs and away for all of this, pokes her head out and sees a bit of a melee going on between my son and I, with my wife screaming at her to call the police. I'm thinking that this is all a palaver over nothing. My son and I are talking at this stage and he realizes that he's misread the situation. He goes back to his room. I go back to the office to clean up the mess. No idea where my wife went. Meanwhile, my daughter has actually called the police. Nobody was hurt. Except my head. Nobody was punched, hit, slapped, kicked, bitten or anything like that. It was just a fairly equitable shouting match over nothing. The police turn up and are confronted by my drunk Hysterical wife, and without even asking me for my version. Take me away in handcuffs. The other family members give their version of events down at the station, which largely agree with how I have described it above, given their alternate perceptions. At the end of it all, I'm issued with an family violence order and prohibited from contacting them or going near them, etc. for 7 days. Frustrated and annoyed, I figure that 7 days might help her cool down a bit and perhaps miraculously realize she's got a problem. But no. That's not how it works. The temporary order was bolstered today by a permanent order for 12 months. My son made a petition to be able to contact me, but this was denied. I'm now unable to contact my family for 12 months, and this also applies in reverse. They can contact me, but I'm not allowed to respond at all. To do so is a 2-year jail term for breaching the order. I had absolutely no say in the matter at all. Didn't get to say a word. As we're all but broke and we were looking to downsize before bankruptcy, this will rapidly hasten the selling of the house just to survive. Yet I can't contact her to arrange anything except through lawyers. Can't easily attend the house to sift through the 20 years of stuff that we've accumulated, etc. I'd be happy to reconcile and sort it out. I love her and feel quite responsible for her after all this time. She needs help. She has no capacity for work. I worry that she'll overdose yet again. How does she think she is going to survive? We'll not make much dollar on the house. There will be enough to pay out the mortgage, but not a lot left over. From my salary, we've now got to pay for 2 residences instead of 1. It'll have to be renting for both of us in a matching pair of dumps. How can the system think that allowing such a tragedy be in any way helpful to the family unit? This has destroyed us. I have no idea what to do about this. I'm tipping that I can do absolutely nothing. I don't want to be alone and isolated from my family for 12 months. That is a death sentence for me. I simply can't cope with the reality that I see before me. I will be fine. I have a supportive extended family and all that. It just seems such a crazy situation that I can only imagine is all too common in Australia. Where is the common sense in any of this? To go from planning our couple's retirement to planning life alone in the same day, so needlessly, is killing me. Have at it, Redditors. Although I respect the fact that you love your wife, I really think it would be good for you and for you kids to separate. She's extremely toxic and downright abusive to you. Is that really how you want to live the rest of your life? You seem to explain it away, saying she is apologetic, and she knows she has a problem, but none of that matters if she isn't changing. And evidently, she isn't. If your daughter was smashed over the head with a lamp by her alcoholic boyfriend, would you say she should stay because he was apologetic and knows he has a problem? Your feeling of responsibility for her is completely false. You shouldn't have any responsibility for your wife being a shitty person. Another interesting thought for you. From a girl that has also struggled with severe anorexia, growing up in a household like this can often be what causes anorexia and encourages anorexia. My reasoning for that is that anorexia is generally something people do as a habit, an OCD-like ritual. They do it because it is something that feels stable to them, something they can control. So naturally, when she is in an environment with a crazy mother, her parents arguing all the time, where she feels like she can't do anything about it, she looks for other ways to cope. Just an observation. / This entire family dynamic is so messed up. Even though I think it's ridiculous that you were separated rather than your wife. Hopefully during your time away you can think about your situation, and if you really want to be 70, fighting your wife for her wine bottle. Dude, your wife is a violent alcoholic whose behavior even you describe as abusive. I don't entirely understand how you're the one who wound up with charges here despite multiple eyewitnesses testifying on your behalf. But while your lawyer, you have hired one, right? Sorts through all that. You need to work on figuring out why you're trying to downplay what has become an incredibly dysfunctional, unhealthy, unsafe dynamic. Because seriously, none of this was normal even before the cops got involved. And you frankly should not be looking to get back to your wife unless she gets herself into rehab. The temporary order was bolstered today by a permanent order for 12 months. I'm confused. The police did this on their own? Your wife didn't ask for it? It seems so bizarre that they have the power to do that if no one is pressing charges or requesting it. You've done everything reasonable to support your partner. At some point, she has to fix her problems. I don't want to be insensitive. Addiction is one of the worst, most destroy things I know. And nobody is a perfect human being. We all have issues. But at the end of the day, you're responsible for your own life, your own problems, and the consequences of your actions. You've done everything you can as a partner. You can't fix this for her. She's doing huge amounts of damage to your life. This isn't fair to you. She desperately needs help. Like rehab. Like now. And if I were you, I'd get away from her until she is clean. You don't have to give up on her and divorce. But maybe separate until things are better. You can't keep getting stabbed in the face. It's just not fair to you. And the other way around. You can't keep stabbing somebody in the face and expect them to stick around because you said sorry. She needs to get her shit together and you need to get away until she does. This is salvageable if she can get clean. Sue. Police believes your drunken wife instead of your son and you who are very sober. Man, police are weird. By the way, your wife needs professional help. Her drinking problem is the main reason that you are in trouble, and without you to stop her, she will drink much more and may become abusive towards kids while drunk. Have you contacted the legal aid for assistance? You can get a free consultation in Australia. That should be your first port of call. Let this be the wake-up call that you needed in your life. Let your wife figure out her finances once the house sells. You're not responsible for sharing your income with someone you're not allowed to see and who will spend all of the money on booze. Are you angry at her at all for what she has done? Your family is struggling. Do you think your situation could improve if she stopped drinking? If you're not, I worry that you're repressing your own feelings. Unless there are some huge holes in this story and a ton that you left out. You need to act as if your wife never wants to see you again. She, along with the kids, definitely said something significant to the authorities and you need to respect this. Your son and daughter are adults. It doesn't make sense why you have to have no contact with them. Your wife is beyond abusive. Get away from her. You can't even see it because you've been living like this for so long. And at this point she has relieved you of your obligation to help her. File for divorce today, so that your finances will be separate. Leave her to support herself. This is the choice she has made. All this drinking is self-medicating. She needed to talk to her doctor about adjusting her meds. But instead she chose to drink. Even though she knows it makes her violent. You don't live your wife. She's just familiar. Our brains trick us into accepting what is familiar. That's why you are accepting the abuse. I work in this sector in Australia. This story is such nonsense. You are either leaving out swaths of information or it is entirely made up for some weird MGTOW agenda. Call NTV for support. From what you have said, it appears your wife has said she was the victim here, and with no way to pay the bills or earn money, and you being AWOL, she has made this bed and now has to live in it. There are limited choices as to how to manage this. Write them out and see what you can do as opposed to what you cannot do. Maybe you have a male domestic violence support? You say you don't want to be isolated from your family, but you have extended family supporting you, which is good. Honestly speaking, you have no choice but to stop enabling her and yes, sell the house out from under her. You may not be able to contact them, but other family members can. So make of that what you will. Step 1. Get a backbone. Step 2. Get a divorce and stop infantilizing an abusive alcoholic to abuse you and your kids. No wonder our daughter is sick. Step 3. Ask yourself why you think any of this is okay and why you chose to enable such behavior. Get some therapy. TLDR. Stay away from your scumbag wife. Stop enabling abusive people. Being together forever doesn't mean they are good or worth staying with. This whole post is WTF. Is there a way to fight your current sentence in court? Or some way you can reach out to extended family to put your wife into rehab? She needs help, and you can't keep suffering for her issues. Your kids are adults. How in the world could anyone issue an order to hinder them from talking to their dad? Doesn't add up. Why did your son initially think you were hurting your wife? You make it seem like you're very level-headed and your wife is crazy. So it's strange he would jump to that conclusion. Are there details about yourself that you're leaving out? I will just about guarantee her arthritis is due to the drinking. Inflammatory diseases and heavy drinking don't play well. How does a 7-day TRO turn into a permanent RO without a hearing? In California, USA, OBV, a TRO may be issued ex parte, but a hearing is then immediately scheduled to determine the outcome of a permanent order. You need massive legal advice and you need to stay away from your soon-to-be ex-wife forever. Do you have criminal charges? Furthermore, you've taught your kids this dysfunction is acceptable in their own lives. No doubt your son will adopt the same empath way of handling this and end up equally as codependent as you are. Seriously. I was in this deep about 4 years ago and it gets ugly and very expensive. If you need some advice or to hear what can happen, private message me. You also need to get into serious mental health care. For yourself only. This has got to this point because your wife's addiction is out of control. She needs to go to rehab immediately. It has now split your family up and left you financially fucked. She should have been in rehab long before this point. Have you had a lawyer look at your case? You have eyewitnesses. This could be well worth fighting. Do you have other family members who understand your wife's situation and can help her? You may need to rely on them to keep her safe and get her checked into a facility. Once she's sober, she may need to let the courts know that you haven't laid a finger on her. I'm sorry you're in this situation. It's awful. Something has to change now. It's gone on far too long. And your children are learning that this is how relationships work. They're living around this and suffering the consequences. Man, this is shitty beyond belief. First off, let me say I am so sorry you are going through all this. No loving parent should ever be separated completely from their kids. I'm not in Australia and such don't know the legal system there, but you should be exploring every legal aid option you can to sort this without going bankrupt. Logically speaking. Which unfortunately doesn't always play a part in the legal system. If your son and daughter all have a fairly similar account of what happened. You were assaulted and your wife was bottle and a half drunk whilst after damaging your belongings. then there's no reason you shouldn't be able to appeal this and get it sorted fairly lively. You sound like my mom when my dad used to go mental and hit me and my sister. She just used to normalize it.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epicuricast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.